In this video, I'd like to share with you how I protected my catalytic converters on my 2008 Tacoma. Actually, according to Haynes, 2005 through 2009 are all the same, so this video should work for them as well. Believe it or not, the Tacoma seems to have 4 catalytic converters located on both sides of the vehicle. Since there's a lot of important looking stuff underneath this truck that I have no idea what it does, I did not want to do any cutting, welding, or grinding on anything on the truck. So, in this video, I show you how I made my protector using existing mounting attach points. Let's jump into this. After several design changes along the way, this is what the final product wound up looking like. First, I'll show you how to install it, then I'll tell you how I built it. The installed shield will have 6 separate attach points. 2 in the back, 2 security screws in the middle. Then in the front, it's pinched by an existing truck shield in 2 different locations. Oh, here's a little factoid I think you'll find interesting. Originally, I thought that putting the shield on would make the truck noisier inside the cab. You know, reflected engine noises and stuff. But it's actually quieter in the cab of the truck now. I'm thinking that's because it's actually blocking a lot of the road noise that was making it through. Anyway, another unexpected bonus. To install the shield, the first thing I did was mount 2 different brackets that I built. These brackets are the mounting location for the security screws. Install the brackets loose. Once all the hardware is started, we'll tighten everything at once. Loosen 2 bolts on the shield in the front. The shield will hang down about 1/4 inch. Slide the catalytic converter shield into this little gap that you just created. That'll hold the front of it up. Now you can install the mounting bolts in the back. Move to the middle and install your security screw on each side. Fully tighten both security screws. Fully tighten the brackets. Tighten the aft bolts. Finally, tighten the front bolts. And that's it for installation. Before we start building this thing, let's talk about something else that all of us are interested in. How much did it cost me? If I wanted to buy this shield on the internet, the prices seem to start at $300 and go up from there. I think I can probably beat that. The first thing we need is a piece of steel for the shield itself. I used 16 gauge steel and cut it to these dimensions. The price of steel changes by the minute, so I took this quick snapshot to show how much a 4x4 sheet of steel costs at the time I took the picture. That'll be $112. Now we'll need 4 aft mounting bolts. They'll be going in these existing mounting holes on the cross frame. $2.32. Since I wanted to add these security screws to make removal of the shield a little more difficult, need to purchase 2 security screws along with washer and mounting nuts. $8.44. The security screws will be holding the shield against this homemade bracket, and we'll need 4 bolts, 2 per bracket, and they'll be mounted on these attach points on the frame. After weeks of trying different types of hardware inside these holes, I gave up and decided it was proprietary. So I went down to the Toyota dealer and told them I'd like to purchase the bolts that go in those holes. They said I was out of luck, nothing's supposed to go in those holes, even though there's a nut in there. Luckily, one of the parts guys said, I think the Tacoma and the 4Runner have the same frame, let's look up the 4Runner. So these 4Runner bolts will fit on a Tacoma. That'll cost you $7.56. Quick side note, I am not including tax on any of these costs. Total cost for my shield is $130.80. Definitely much better than the internet $300 version. Okay, let's start building this thing. I didn't even need to jack the truck up to do this. Once I established what areas of the truck had to be protected and where all the mounting points were, I crawled underneath with a chunk of cardboard and started cutting. This will be my shield template. Cardboard templates are very forgiving. They're sturdy enough to keep their shape, but if you make a mistake, like trim too much off in one point, just replace it with tape, then cut the tape to the correct dimensions. If you make a big mistake like this entire side was wrong, trace the good side onto another piece of cardboard, then use tape to replace the bad template portion with your new piece of cardboard. You do want to mark the template to keep the orientation the same each time you put it up, because on the front of the template, the driver's side and the passenger side are not symmetrical. You need to make bends, you just score the cardboard and you can bend it however much you need to. Use an awl to punch holes in the cardboard at each of your mounting locations. To verify the holes were correct, I actually held the template in place with the mounting hardware I was going to use. When you're satisfied with your template, lay it on your steel and trace it out. Now you know exactly where you need to cut. The tool I use for cutting this out is a plasma cutter. This thing will cut through solid steel using simply electricity and compressed air. After you're finished cutting it out, you want to drill all your mounting holes. For better accuracy, I'd first drill a smaller hole, and then I'd jump up to the correct size bit for the final hole. When you're finished, this is what your final cutout will look like. The intermittent score marks are so that it makes it easier to bend it later. Right now you just have the aft mounting holes. The security mounting holes will be drilled once the part is in place. And as I mentioned earlier, you can clearly see the top of the template is not symmetrical, which I think is kind of weird, but we're moving on. Now I need to make 2 brackets. I'm going to start out by temporarily installing the shield. For a template, I'm going to use a piece of wood. Wood is extremely easy to manipulate using a chop saw. You want the template to fit between the shield and the mounting holes on the frame. I was a bit surprised to find out the frame of the truck is not parallel to the ground at this point. Back to the chop saw to do some more trimming. Believe it or not, but this is the angle that you have to cut to make this bracket work. Transfer the dimensions from your template over to your steel and cut it out. The steel I'm using is rather thick, so after you're done cutting it with the plasma cutter, this is what the end of the steel looks like. Head over to your grinding wheel and clean those edges up. I held the bracket together with tape and put it into place, just to make sure my cut dimensions were correct. Then I tack welded it together. Make sure your bracket still fits properly. Before I do the final weld on this bracket, I want to drill all my mounting holes to make sure everything fits. So the first thing I'm going to do is drill 2 holes that will match the holes in the frame. I place some tape across the holes, use my thumb to make an indentation above the holes, then colored them in with a Sharpie. Position the bracket onto the tape, and transfer your marks over to your bracket. While drilling my holes, I use 4 different drill bits. I started out small and worked my way up to my final size. I do this because my hole drilling equipment really isn't top of the line.
Station 281, 2 stations before the transfer station where we catch the nightmare, which meant we'd be able to get the dust. See the prepping table menu. Sure, the box is set, filling it up. Here's a long list of tables, and most of them seem useless. Most cost about 25,000 gold each. Particular table to the specific beekeeper bee suit mending station. I'll take that one. I'd like to upgrade my separate table to level 3.
Temporarily bolt the bracket onto the frame. Then use a whole bunch of measuring equipment and your imagination to figure out where the exact center of that bracket is on your catalytic converter shield. Grab the nut and the washer for your security screw, and a temporary screw that will fit into the nut. Drill a hole through your shield and into the bracket. Very sorry, but the video of this step was unusable. Install your temporary screw, washer, and nut. Now we're going to weld that nut into place on the bracket. This is the reason for the temporary screw. We don't want to damage the threads on the security screw while we're doing our welding. Now that we're sure all our mounting hardware fits, do your final weld. After drilling all the holes on this bracket, this is the only location that bracket can fit and work. In the aviation community, we call that a fitted part, and engrave the location that part belongs onto the metal. This will come in handy later if I ever had to take it off the truck and then put it back on. The outside corners of the shield are going to be bent upward at an angle. I used a T-bevel to determine what angle I wanted and locked it into place. Then I stopped for a week and built this metal bender for the next step. Lay the metal down on the bender and secure the holding bar on top of it. Then lift the handles to bend the metal. This type of bender design is more along the lines of sheet metal, so that's why I cut those grooves at the bend point, so this bender could actually bend the steel. Measure the angle of the bend to your desired angle, and repeat bending until you get to the desired angle you want. The front of the shield is also bent up a little. Since I wanted these bends to be at full strength, I went back and filled in my gaps. Then I cleaned it back up again so it looks like the original steel. Okay, we can finish up. We want to paint this thing. First, use a solvent to remove all the protective oils and greases that was on the metal. Since we're next to the catalytic converter, I decided to use a high-temp paint. Nice even coats. Paint everything except your mounting hardware. And here we have it. The finished shield, mounting brackets, mounting hardware, and the tools I used to install it. However, for those people that want to leave me a comment telling me they can use the same tools to remove it, well, that's fine. It's going to take you time to do that. And I may or may not have tack welded the mount bolts into place, so they have to be ground off. Well, thanks for watching.